Welcome back to another great episode of Dr. J Radio Live. Of course, I'm your host, Dr. J, broadcasting from the city of demons, the demonic city that is La La Land or Hollyweird. And we are broadcasting on 107.7 FM UPRN, Louisiana, actually New Orleans, Louisiana, as well as Deprogrammed Radio in the UK, plus tons of other places you can listen to the show, including iHeartMedia. Now, today we're going to do what was meant to happen last Thursday, and that ended up turning into somewhat of a monologue with people in the chat. So finally, without further ado, we bring on the station owner of UPRN, who really has a historic resume about his involvement of research of ETs, abductions, and so much more. The one and only Joe Montaldo. Joe, welcome back.
Well, thank you there, Dr. J. You know, I was thinking, I had all the stuff I wanted to tell you, but then I just realized if I did, they'd probably come kill your ass. I said, well, man, I said, let me tell him this. And said, oh, man, I don't know. Then I said, well, oh, no, I can't tell him that for sure. I was like, let me tell him about this. Oh, no, I can't tell him that either. Damn. I don't know, man. You might be in trouble here.
I hope not. You know, I got to tell you, between you and me, is after I interviewed Roger Stone, and I said, do you usually talk to Robert Mueller on the phone? I mean, meaning like, do you know he's listening in and just start talking crap to him? And he goes, oh, yeah. And he goes, just so you know, he's recording this call. I'm like, oh, no, I didn't even think about it. And then, of course, Jerome Corsi comes on, and I'm like, oh, great. You know, thankfully, I didn't get hit with a subpoena.
Say, come to me, Big Daddy, and visit. Yeah. There's so much stuff going on right now. Both, I noticed something because of the paranormal world and well, right now the politics around the world and stuff. It's ufology's trying to kind of getting pushed in the back. They got their few little conferences going on and they got these little things going on, but for the most part, you're just not really hearing anything anymore. There's always something new, but it's not really new. It's something rehashed or redone or re-going over. And a couple of my friends and I who talk about ufology all the time, I'm like, look, guys, what is the problem here? I said, there are 7 billion of us on the planet. At least 4 billion of us now have cell phones. But yet the amount of pictures have gone down, not up.
I know. See, and remember, we just talked about before we went on air the CCTV video in the UK.
Yes.
Just like you said, the amount of people with mobile video recorders in their pocket and the amount of surveillance cameras, why do we have less videos of craft or beings walking the streets than we did 20, 30, 40 years ago?
Well, part of it's probably because a lot of the stuff today is high def and it's all digital, so it seems like must be a little easier to interfere with than the old magnetic tape. But see, I think the problem was the old magnetic tape style stuff, as long as you were far enough away from the craft, you could get a decent shot of it because it didn't interfere with it. But the new stuff, it seems like it's all digital, so it seems like they just pulse out a wave and nothing seems to get any pictures. You hardly see anything now. Every now and then you'll see a little picture or something. And because you see so few now, you got to really look at everything really skeptical because it seems like, okay. And then the other problem is it's so easy to hoax on a cell phone.
Yes, that's true. Even on a cell phone, you don't even need sophisticated equipment.
No, you don't, because it's all high def now. It's digital. You can take a picture of the background, crop in a UFO, set it in the background, and it's usually they got these ones that you can enhance picture or absorb the picture into the background. You can't really tell a difference. And even a good analysis is hard to tell a difference a lot of times. So it's hard. And you just don't see. One of the best cell phone pictures I've seen came out of Brazil about 8 or 9 years, actually about 10 years ago.
Wow.
And what you see is it's a guy headed towards what looks to be a storm. He's cruising along, he's in a Jeep or something because he's bouncing around, and they stop and he's filming this thing. And as he starts to zoom in, and this was a cell phone, by the way, as he starts to zoom in, you notice it's kind of a circular looking thing. It kind of looked like it was just like a big round saucer looking thing, and it looked like a storm underneath because it was kicking up dust, so it looked like a big dirty kind of brownish grayish cloud floating in the sky that was in a big circle, and it looked like rain underneath. But as it got closer, you could see in the tape that it was something else. It was like some kind of energy pushing out from the bottom of this thing, and that's what was driving the dust up and causing the lightning around it. But it was definitely some type of solid craft. It looked like one of those spaceships. Oh, what was that damn movie?
Day the Earth Stood Still?
No,
Or
Will Smith was in it. The one where they
Independence
break
Day.
it. Independence Day. It looks like one of them when it's coming in. And it's a really good video, and it's about 15 minutes long, but
I'll tell you a good one. This past December, when the Cousins brothers of Third Phase of the Moon were out here, and video came on somebody introduced him on the internet, reached out to them, and they were in around the Pentagon in a car, and they had filmed off their smartphone the passenger what seemed to be an inverted pyramid, almost like a lightning or like a laser type of bluish color on the outline. At first I thought this is just a reflection from inside the car from the glass. However, with their journalism, they were able to uncover another view from another car, people totally unrelated to the first, from another vantage point. And not only do you see this inverted pyramid rotating very slowly, you get to see one side of it and the shade of it, and that sort of gives it what it needs to show that what you're looking at is a tangible object.
See, they gotta get them out there, but still, you need the proverbial picture of E.T. walking down the stairs, stepping onto the beach or something. Nothing else really matters because, and I've tried to explain this hundreds of thousands of times before to all my ufologist friends, you will never get to the bottom of ET by lights in the sky. It's not going to happen. It has to be something on the ground or some type of contact. You can chase UFOs all day long, and you can see some good ones, you can see some bad ones, you can see some that you kind of wonder what the hell they are. I mean, the one they put on Sci-Fi Channel that I filmed just 5 miles down the road from here is an excellent video. I mean, because it's a long video, it's 20 minutes long. Then you hear me talking, and you see, I zoom in on this object. It's way out. It's probably, it's right at the crest on the Gulf, so you know what height it is. We knew what the cloud deck was that day. It was 5,000 feet. We knew this thing was about 2,500 feet because it's right in between the horizon and the sky. So we knew right where it was. And it just sat there, and then it just started moving a little bit, and it would go up and down. But it sat there for a while, and then it just kind of widened out. And then you just watched it as it just settled down into the ocean and disappeared. Now, the whole thing's on there, and Sci-Fi tried to replicate it or reproduce it because the guy on Sci-Fi tried to say, well, it's double headlights. It's double headlights. And the lady said, no, that's the Gulf of Mexico. That's not a highway. She's like, that's way out of Gulf. I mean, it's, right where this thing was, a Gulf's probably around 2,200 feet deep. So people never think about that when they think about the Gulf. But the Gulf gets deep, gets way deep. And big old whales up in there and stuff. People don't realize how deep the Gulf of Mexico is. So it's kind of a little weird when you're out there and you look on your meter and it says 3,200 feet. You're like, what? And you're thinking you're in this little 30-foot long boat going, wait, it's time to go back to shore, man. What the hell's going on out here? Because there's a ripple out there around you. It's crazy. But you see a lot of UFOs out there. You see a lot of stuff. See, right where I live right now, you can get on U-Track or on J-Track and track the satellites, and then you can get on Airport Monitor and track all air traffic in live time within 80 miles of where I live. So I can sit on my back porch, and anything that's flying around, I can look and see, okay, I know it's this. I can even get the flight number and where it's headed. Or if it's a satellite, I can even get what type of satellite or who it belongs to. Even if it's classified, it'll still give you, it will still acknowledge the fact that it's a satellite. And it'll give you where it's moving. So you can track all that. Most people don't even think about this kind of stuff when they're looking for UFOs. So by having that, and you can get this, there's all kind of software now and apps you can get to monitor air traffic and satellites if you want to just put them on your phones and stuff. So in the old days, we had to bring laptops with us. And yeah, I know, guys, it's just funny stuff. But anyway, it's still, you can track all this in real time. And you can go back as far as a year on Airport Monitor as far as air traffic goes. In JTrack, you might even go back further. So you can even go back when you've heard about something in the area and see if there was anything that could be possibly related. And you can even do weather anomalies. So by having these three things, it's almost instant. You can almost rule out instantly, okay, well, it wasn't anything to do with any of these, so what the hell was it? So it doesn't prove what it is, but it disproves what it possibly could have been. So it only leaves you with a very limited selection of what it could be, which, makes for an easier argument when you're in ufology.
What about this craft that's in our solar system that is, maybe you can tell me how long it is? I don't know. I've heard from different various people. Linda says, I think 10 kilometers or 20 or something like that.
Oh, you're talking about, what's it, Omar or whatever it's called? It's, I don't know. I hear more. They go back and forth on this thing every day. Oh, no, it's an asteroid. Oh, no, it's a comet, asteroid comet thingy. Okay. Oh, well, it's still moving kind of weird. And it did, slow itself down and speed itself up, which was still a little odd. Well, I have heard estimates between 8 and 14 kilometers, so that's probably about 10 miles, or 9 miles or something. But it's big, but what it's doing, and it just seems to be just cruising through. The problem here is somebody said, well, they could be scanning us. Well, we wouldn't know if they're using something other than radio wave type technology. We're not going to know what the hell it is. It could be scanning us all day long. Look, think about this. We've been looking for contact with radio waves, right? Until some brilliant guy a couple of years ago, a guy who was looking for planets, by the way, said, you know what? Why don't we look for messages in like laser beams and stuff, or types of light types of communication, because maybe a more sophisticated society would use something like that. And they have found 3 or 4 signals that are very promising, but they still can't prove what the hell they are. As a matter of fact, what set it off is the guy was watching something, looking for a planet, and he picked up this signal. It hits Earth every 6 months, and it's been reoccurring for about 10 years. They keep trying to say it's some kind of star, but they can't find it, and it just doesn't make any sense. So it seems to be something scanning us every 6 months. Hey, how you humans doing? Y'all still alive? Damn. Damn, they're still there. Damn, how many millions of years it's been? I told you, man, they're like cockroaches. One day they're going to send an exterminating team for y'all people. You better watch out. I'm friends with them, so.
Well, let me dive into something a little deeper, because you mentioned something too. We could look at UFOs. They could be good. They could be bad images. But that doesn't answer anything, really. It just says, okay, there's craft that's in the sky, and they're different shapes and sizes, and they're using some sort of technology to travel that seems to defy our physics. More than likely, they're using some sort of anti-gravity generator, because how else can they blink out, which I guess you can argue that they're going in through wormholes. So what I always said is, if we want to get results, we got to talk to the folks who are actually dealing with these ETs.
There's definitely some type of portal gate system. I don't know what, everybody's got a name for the drive. I really don't know what the hell it is, but when you listen to people talk about UFOs, and this is a pretty common theme about them, it's like, poof, it was there, poof, it was gone. And when they say that, they don't go like, oh, poof, it's straight. No, that's not what they do. They say, poof, it's there, poof, it's gone. Meaning like it blinked out. It was there, and then poof, it was gone. You don't see any streaking across the skies or anything like that. Every once in a while, someone will catch something kind of underneath moving through the sky, but it's not, I have to show you to help you understand. But sometimes on 400 film, you can see something moving through the cloud layer very fast. Most people estimate somewhere around Mach 25, Mach 30, moving in a straight line. It's been filmed down around Pensacola about 4 or 5 times. Nobody knows what the hell it is. But it's in there. But anyway, see, I get too easily distracted, man.
That's okay. It's
but if you're gonna do any of this and you're gonna really track UFOs, you've got to really get set up across the country. You got to have a good network to do it, and you really got to understand what you're looking for. You got to understand what kind of drives, what a drive is, what it could be. For the most part, it's like what we were just talking about. They blink in, they blink out, suggesting it's like a doorway opening and a doorway closing.
And yeah, another dimension. That's right.
And it could be a dimension. It could just be someone stepping from one place. They might open a door here and be behind Mars in 2 minutes, or out of the end of the solar system, or into the next solar system. It just seems to be the way they travel. And it's more than that, because listen, I'm sitting in my bedroom, I'm sitting up watching TV, poof, the gray was standing there.
Really?
Oh yeah. And it's on many, many, many times you blinked and the gray was standing there. Some people, I've seen them walk through walls. I've heard about that on many occasions, but a lot of times they say they blink their eye and it's standing right there at the foot of the bed, or at the head of the bed. And
I'm glad you mentioned the wall. This actually is a story that I've always found super fascinating. This comes from Preston Dennett's book, UFOs Over California. This woman was a regular abductee, and one night she was abducted along with her 7-year-old son. And in the morning, while having breakfast, she was really scared about how to ask him if he knew about it at all. So she decides to ask him if he slept okay. Honey, how was your sleep last night? And the kid said, okay, and just went on eating his cereal. And she thought that clearly he doesn't remember. And then he immediately just bursts out, my alien friends came to visit me last night. And she was like, taken aback. And she said, and he said, proceeded to say that, but they get really mad at me. And she said, why do they get mad at you? What do you do? And she says, well, every time they take me through the wall, I see all these colored balls, and I really like them. They look really nice and cool, and I want to stay there, and they tell me it's not safe. And that's why they get mad at me. And I thought that was the most believable story, because if they are taking through a wall, well, what would you expect to see if matter's breaking down? You'd see the different molecules, I would think.
Well, I've heard it described different ways. Some people say it's like stuff floating around, or some people say it's like little round circles interwoven with each other. And it just seems it has a common thread, a common theme when people are pulled through glass, or pulled through walls, or floated up through ceilings and stuff like that. People do a lot of times, though. People don't describe anything; they must just close their eyes and clench it. Even though a couple people say even when you close your eyes, you kind of still sense it or feel it passing through you, so you still get an idea what it looks like or feels like. We've had a lot of people describe this, and it does seem something the Gray does on a regular basis when they need to. But for the most part, the Grays come in, they do their thing, they pick you up, float you up through the ceiling, take you up, beam you up, whatever the hell you want to call it. You're on board the ship, they do their thing, they set you back, and especially if you were sleeping, you don't remember anything. It's like a damn dream. If it's something like in a daytime abduction, because it always bothered me that abductions only happened at night. When I first got into all this, there were so many limitations to alien abduction. I was like, what the hell are these people talking about? You're an alien, advanced culture, you're taking people, nobody seems to know. I don't think it's going to matter if it's day or night. And then we found out, I'm not even sure, but it's last time we checked, it was more abductions like from like 5 a.m. till like 9 or 10 p.m. than the rest of the late night hours or early morning hours. There doesn't seem to be as many. And it might just be because they're following the curve of the Earth and abducting as they're going around the planet. As they're moving around we're traveling around on a 24-hour day, they might be just following along with it and taking people that way. So it may just be easier for them to take them in the daytime. It doesn't seem like they got any problem with memories. You hear a lot of things like, especially from young people. I was riding on my bike, and my brothers and I were standing there, and there was 2 deers there, and one of them were in the woods, and then there was like a weird clown thingy standing there, and then it was gone, and then there was like owls or deers again, and there's a lot of this. It still is, but there's not, so like I tell people, these are not cover memories, and this is where ufology made such a big mistake. And they're still having such a hard time getting away from it. These are trigger memories. These are the memories that allow you to subtly realize something happened. Especially for younger people, they want to give you memories that are going to allow you to look through this without immediately being scared to bejesus. So they're trigger memories, and it makes you start to question what happened, and you start to pry into it. You try to look for the memories in your head of what really happened. And sometimes it starts to crack, and a lot of times it manifests itself in your dreams, but that's how it eventually starts. And people who can handle it will dig and dig more. Even sometimes people who can't handle it, a lot of times it can lead to drug addiction, alcohol addiction, all kind of sort of things. But it can also, in the same aspect, help people grow, help people understand more things. It can help them in businesses and their career. It just depends on how you want to deal with it. And I can understand, especially younger people, I can understand wanting to bury yourself into drugs or alcohol or whatever, because just trying to cope with the idea that you may actually be taken by aliens and things are being done to you is enough to make anybody crazy, no matter how strong you are. Then if you're a parent and these are your kids, it's even harder. So, so a lot of people resort to this. But if you can realize that they put us back, for the most part, they wipe out the memories. They don't want you to remember the bad stuff. A lot of them have gifts, all kind of gifts, from telekinesis, well, not telekinesis so much, but from telepathy to empathic abilities, or both, or a few other little gifts. They're there, and you can use this when you're doing business with people or meeting people, or no one sends manager, not manager, or how far you can push an issue or not. These are all gifts, and you learn to use them. And once you understand that ET is not really out to kill you or your family, you can kind of cope with this better. And when you know there's other people out there that this has happened with that are dealing with this and growing with their lives. It's unfortunately, there's a lot of counseling involved in alien abduction research, and none of us are counselors.
It's true.
So we can't emphatically tell you to do this, that, or the other thing, because we can't. All we can tell you is, this has happened for these people, working with these groups and helping yourself with this and understanding what's going on. It's like anything else. It's like coming, and I use coming out of the closet all the time because it's like therapy. Now you're out there. So you're choosing to tell whoever you want, but now you realize there's other people out there. You can read their accounts or talk to them personally. Understand that, hey, look, yeah, I dealt with this, and my life's still going on. My kids are still alive. I'm still making positive strides. Or you can be one of the ones that pops a pill, takes a shot, and goes on whatever.
Yeah, I've noticed a lot of people that can't cope with it, like you said, turn to drugs and alcohol. And like you said, others seem to cope with it well, which begs the question, why would ETs allow certain people to have full memory conscious recall, like Jim Sparks?
They don't.
But what about Jim Sparks?
Jim Sparks don't have full, and him and I just, okay. Anyone listening to this show, Jim and I are friends, and we have done many shows together. And we haven't done it in the last 3 or 4 years, but we have done many, many shows together. So I put this to Jim Sparks. As we're friends, so I put it to him in a nice way. Okay. You know how much he was being taken, right? So I asked him live on the air, and him and I had already met in Houston, and with Joseph Ledette. And anyway, so I asked him, I said, okay, there's 24 hours in a day. Let's assume that you're sleeping 8 of them. I said, so that's still 16 hours. I said, so you're on board this ship 10 days. That's 160 hours. I said, can you give me 160? I want you to sit here right now with this show and start giving me, he couldn't even give me 2 hours.
Wow. Why?
Because there's a lot there. And if we would have fished all night long, I could have probably got 10, 15, maybe even 20 hours out of him.
I would
but
think
this was
so,
a monthly
yeah.
thing with him. Okay,
yeah.
This was a monthly thing. And even the ones we know that are being taken and being trained for stuff, even them, you can't get more than 5, 10 hours max, because the rest is all blotted out. Some of it's because they can't carry it back with them. There's a way that your consciousness or your brain can log into their computers when you're on board the ships, or when you're not up there being, scanned or being probed or something. When you're just actually up there working or learning, you can actually retain some of your consciousness is actually retained inside the computer. So when you come home, you lose that. That's no longer part of you. You can't really access it here on Earth. So when you're on board the ship, it's there. When you hear it's not, so you're missing something. But I forgot what I was going to go with there. Sorry, guys.
That's okay. We were talking about Jim Sparks, about why I asked you why he had conscious memory recall. You said he doesn't.
The thing. Yeah, the conscious memory, for some reason, you can't really get that much. I mean, the best person I've ever seen could only give me 30 hours. And a good friend of mine who we spent, like I told you, we spent 10 days doing 3 hours a day. It's 30 hours of hypnosis. At least half of that was repeat. And she was a lifelong contactee, and that's still all we could get is 15 hours.
Wow. Well, so it begs the question of what else is there? What is hiding in there? And what is her conscious hiding?
I'm pretty good at. I can put you under pretty deep if I want to. So it's not like you can keep it, and there's no thing the government's putting in there that would keep me from getting it. So ET does a pretty good one, but usually even ET you can see the footprints. Unless it's a loop memory, and then eventually those will break too, because if you know it's a loop memory, you can look for the loop on where it was actually being done at, and then look for little clues in the loop to break the memory. But still, you're not getting that memory. And Jim, he's like, Joe, I'm like, well, I'm just trying to be honest with people, because I hear people tell me this all the time, these other kind of, oh, I can tell you all this stuff, and I will. I'll give them the whole show. I said, just go. I want you to go the whole show, everything you can tell me. And most of them cannot even fill a full 2 hours. There are a few out there that could probably do 10 hours straight, but for the most part, even them can't really go past that. So unless you're just a charlatan making this stuff up, you just don't really get much more than that. So Jim is one of the most open contactees I've ever seen, and him and I have talked many, many, many occasions. I mean, we've probably got 30 hours of tape, him and I, on air. And we've got in-depth, we've talked about soldier programming, things that went on, how it went on, what it went on. But even in the programs, I could get him talking about a program, but he can only give me about an hour's worth of details.
Do you think they are wiping our memories?
Well, I think some of it gets wiped, or I don't know if it gets wiped, it gets stored.
Stored.
I don't, because the reason why is if they wipe your memory every time, that means certain things you got to relearn when you come back. They don't want you to have to do that.
Walk,
so I think
eat,
that's one of the reasons they
talk.
give you that consciousness upgrade up there, so you can log into it, because then as soon as you do, that's come back in your head. So it's not like you're having to relearn. And it may be in your head here, because we know we get downloads on a regular basis. Contactees on a regular get them. Well, anyway, active contactees get them. And downloads can open up in like a burst, but usually they just kind of trickle in. And so stuff's being revealed, or things are coming on, or you start to understand different things. You'll find out that a lot of contactees, education that they have today is far beyond their formal education. So it's really strange when you see them, and it may not be in grammar or spelling, dumbass. I'm talking anyway. You'll find that a lot of them have understandings of physics and science and things that you wouldn't even think when you looked at them or listened to them speak they would even understand, but yet they can.
Now, what do you think? Why do you think we're being taken? I mean, Bob Lazar was fond of saying that in the briefing documents that he had read, those blue folders, those infamous blue folders, one of them said that we had undergone 63 external corrections. And so that would mean that we had been abducted from what Bob Lazar read was about 10,000 years ago, at least that species. And then Linda talks about 250 million years ago, or even longer than that, is when they started coming here. But why? What do you think is the reason for the abduction and for the visitation?
Well, it gets complicated, because it depends where you want to start, and it's important because if you go by Sumerian texts, there were some beings that came. Well, they believe in the Rebrew, Planet X.
Yes.
Well, Planet X was never a planet. If it was probably the one that's hanging out between Jupiter and Mars right now, the asteroid belt. But more than likely, it was a craft of some time, probably about the size of a moon or close to it. Because they did tell you that they experienced gravitational forces when it would approach our planet, waves and earthquakes and stuff like that, but not enough to destroy the planet. So it couldn't have been something 5 times the size of Earth even got close to it. It would be a disaster for the planet. It wouldn't even have to get relative. It could get within us and Mars, and it would cause irreparable damage to our planet. So that's how you kind of knew that the Rebrews were full of BS. There was no signs of that anyway. There's no big gaps through the asteroid belt or the Oort clouds, where some big planet's been rogue and flying through every 3,600 years. So more than likely, this was some type of spacecraft. They talk about these fair-haired white beings. It sounded a lot like what Hitler's book Mein Kampf. He talks about these beings that used to come talk to him. He calls them angels. Well, unfortunately, those angels sound a whole hell of a lot like these original aliens that came to Earth. They said they came here and built 2 great white dome cities. The cities were domed because the aliens could not breathe the atmosphere of our planet. In turn, those aliens just made a race of themselves that could breathe the atmosphere here. I guess they started mining and colonizing and doing whatever, but for some reason, the race that they created to do all this decided that, well, we're omnipotent super beings too. Why the hell are we doing this? So they started 7 creations of man. And some of them had dog heads and bird heads. They had all kind of varieties according to the writings. But in the end, they settled on a human-looking being, something that looked a lot like us, not quite like us. It would be more like what you heard in Adam and Eve. They could do things like procreate. They could plow the fields. They could name the animals. But they really didn't understand why they were here, or even what they were. They weren't self-aware in the way we are. They were just kind of like pets almost. You could call them slaves if you wanted to, but they were too stupid to even be slaves, so they were more like pets. So along comes the reptilians. We don't know how many thousands of years this has been going on, by the way. It could be 100,000, it could be 10,000. No one really knows. But anyway, stage right into the reptilians get here. They're like, wait a minute, we've been coming and going to this planet for 200 million years. It's not technically their planet. Some people think it is, some people it's not. We've gone back and forth on that, but I have to agree with some of my actual callers in that more than likely they colonized this planet first, 200, 300 million years ago, probably about 150 to 200 million years ago. But whatever happened that destroyed our solar system, because somewhere around 65 million years, 55 to 65 million years ago, Venus, Earth, and Mars all suffered a catastrophic disaster, all within the same time frame. Maybe that's when that planet was coming through and blew up there, or maybe there was some kind of war. Maybe no one really knows, but it seems to have happened at times. So the reptilians left, and when they came back 50, 60 million years later, guess who they found? They found the humans here, the human-type aliens here, with a colony of roaches like us running around. So I guess they didn't want to start a war, so what they did is they started stealing the women, raping the women.
Nephilim, right?
The women started having children. These are reptilians. They were stealing and raping the women, and they described the children as being born different. And what they meant by it is the children had become self-aware. They had a reptilian section in their brain now. They became aggressive. They really became more intelligent. They wanted to know, why the hell are we plowing the fields? Why don't you go plow your own damn field? Next thing you knew, there was a revolution, because by then there were probably millions and millions and millions of humans all over with these 2 or 3 small alien colonies running around. So anyway, something went down. At that point, it seems like the reptilians and humans were doing regular abductions, I guess because they had created some type of hybrid. The reptilian human creation had became its own thing now, became us, or close to what we are today anyway. Because once the Greys entered it, our society changed once again. But so they started abducting us. I guess there was a lot of heat between the two. It went on for a few thousand years, and then for some reason the Greys showed up. The Greys are like the galactic policemen. Everybody thinks they work for the light beings in the council. Whether they do or not, that's sure not relevance to this. But they showed up, and they said, okay, look, we here to babysit now. You can't wipe the humans out. You done screwed up by creating them, so you're going to have to leave them, come to fruition. So they start abducting people. So now you got 3 different races of aliens abducting people. And at this time is probably when the new blood type came in, the O negative came in. All of this is going on. And they're regularly taking people. And all these tens of hundreds of thousands of years since then, these reptilians, humans, and Grey contactees have been interbreeding with each other for at least 100,000 years or more. So the species here today is a completely new species of human. And science will actually prove it out, because I've been noticing more and more they've been going, well, we ain't been quite right about our DNA here. Let's rethink some of this. It seems like we're just a whole new species from the original one that was created. And I guess if you're the reptilians and humans and aliens, or even the council, you have now created a race that has its own base DNA plus 3 omnipotent alien DNAs. I'm just saying omnipotent because it sounds good. But anyway, here you get super races now. So here we are. We have our own original D plus 3 other races. That's 4. If you're an alien, especially like the Greys that are reptilians, you have to stop and think, one day we may surpass you. We may be the smartest, fastest, brightest alien in the galaxy, or in the universe for that matter. Even the light beings have to question, because we all know as humans believe that our souls are energy anyway. So we expect to one day to ascend into an energy type being. So here we are as a novice race, and we're already thinking this way. Yes, we're probably 50 million years away, maybe even 100 million years away. We might be 2 billion years away, but we're already thinking that way. You have to get a little nervous. Go, wait a minute. Should we leave these guys around? We should wipe these guys out, man. So I guess they're just waiting to see which way we're going to really go. Right now, we're only a danger to ourselves, and we're not a danger to anyone else, but we will be one day.
Here is a question from Lars Saturn. What do you think about the southern point of Saturn?
Saturn. Saturn's an interesting planet for a couple of reasons. One, where it's located, it would be considered strategic, and like the space around us. It's an excellent place to keep anything parked or hidden. Matter of fact, it just came up. I was doing an interview with Alfred Weber one night. They were talking about them things parked right there by the sun. There was 3 or 4 of them parked there. What was interesting about it is, if you take that and you triangle it across the Saturn, and you'd have to go dead center Saturn on the southern pole straight down, and you go dead center Saturn, and then when you shoot across from there, it actually angles out as Pluto's going swinging the back way, because it's going the other orbit. It actually bounces back that and comes back to Earth. It makes this weird, I don't want to call it a pentagon or whatever the hell you call it, but it makes this weird thing, and it just repeats it all the time. I have no idea what the hell it means, but it's interesting to see. And it's got to be something to it. It's got to have something to do with the way Saturn is shifting right there, because I mean it's a huge plant. Well, it's a huge gas giant, I should say. We don't know how thick the core is yet, but we know the gravitational field there is massive. So we know that if you got something parked there or hidden there, it has to be big, it has to be massive, it has to be quite powerful, to resist being crushed or sucked in or destroyed. And there's been a couple of people suggest that there is something parked there. I've seen pictures. I go back and forth. I see something sometimes. Sometimes I'm like, nah, I'm seeing things. It's just like there's a couple of things. There's been some Photoshop. These were leaked by a group out of China. On one of the China surveyors, as it was going around, it caught what appeared to be a black saucer coming in underneath it, trying to flatten out to try to slide underneath it. But you could see it. It's a really good picture. It stayed up on the internet for about 4 days and then it just disappeared. I imagine it got bit washed or something. But it was interesting to see that. But you see these from time to time every now and then. I used to have a friend before he retired. We used to get a lot. We still get some satellite photos, but we don't get near as many as we used to. We get about half as many. And from time to time, we just get a satellite photo of it. So the satellite's cruising along, right, doing its thing, and all of a sudden you see like something just blots out the sun over, and it's big. You can tell because it's a big cast, like a big shadow, and it just moves over, and then the sun comes back. You don't actually see anything but it blotting whatever it is, and it's big. And with the International Space Station, that's what I was saying earlier. You can track all this stuff. You can track the International Space Station. You can see exactly where it is and what it's doing. You can track space debris and satellites and all kind of stuff. So you got to wonder what the hell those things are. You got to stop and go, what the hell is up there? And it's not the first time. And, there's been many, many, many astronauts and cosmonauts talk about what they seen in space. Just recently, the cosmonaut that came home said the damn thing came and hovered over the space station for an hour.
Why do you think that Neil Armstrong really never really talked about his mission to the moon?
Well, because the only 3 speeches I ever heard, or I shouldn't say I actually heard, there was, he had given a lecture in Florida, and the reporter wrote the story as he wrote it, which he said, when they landed on the moon, there was a moon base. There was a base on the moon. And, they were warned off the moon. They made contact, and they were told not to come back, or not to come back there. I think originally they took it as not to come back there, but I think the aliens actually meant don't come back.
Don't come back in space.
Yeah, don't come back to the moon anyway, or at least not around there. And I noticed there hadn't been any missions landed around there since. So even the Chinese and Russians seem to stay away from there. So obviously there's something there. Now we know that there's water and all. There's helium-3 on the moon, by the way, ladies and gentlemen, which is an outstanding power source. And there's water there now. So the moon's becoming more and more viable as a place to build a base. Just put it on the dark side. I don't want to see a massive city on the moon when I look up at the moon at night. I want to see the moon. Y'all can build whatever you want. Put it on the dark side. Well, we got to see it. The moon doesn't rotate, so keep it on the other side. And let's not turn it into that movie on that TV show 1999 either. So keep that in mind.
Now, you just made a good point. The moon doesn't rotate. Do other moons or satellites, as what a moon really is?
Some do, some don't. Yeah, no, some of them do, some of them don't. There are some moons like around Jupiter and Saturn that do have their own. They spin as they go around the planet. Some of them don't. I guess it all the matters on how they will come and where they spin or not when they got into the gravitational field of the planet they're around. I'm telling you, y'all gonna find life all over our solar system. Just like I said, they was gonna find water on Mars. I predicted 20 years ago they're gonna find life on Mars. No, I'm not talking about little green men. If there are, that's cool too. But I was talking about life. I mean, like plants, maybe some kind of small animals or bacteria. I think it's gonna be more than bacteria. I don't think it's gonna be microbiology. I mean, micro size. I actually think they're gonna find like underground caverns. There's gonna probably be little ecosystems in them. You'll probably find a few of them scattered around on Mars because there's some things there. I mean, it rains on Mars, people. Most people don't even know that. Mars, even though it has a thin atmosphere, you don't know what's trapped underneath there. We know there's a salty brine all across the top of it, so we know there are things that grow in there. I mean, all you got to do is look where life starts and lives on our planet. It doesn't need much in the way of oxygen. I mean, they grow in black smokers. They grow in the ice in the north and in the Atlantic. I mean, in the Arctic. So
you do. Think about it. They grow at the bottom of the ocean where no light hits, so you don't even need.
So light. I don't doubt they're gonna find, and I think they can find other. And I think on some of those frozen moons where they get them big oceans, I think they're gonna find life in the oceans. Matter of fact, one of my favorite videos is It's I forgot, the satellite's coming down to land on I think it was a Titan or whichever one it was. It's coming down to land on it, and they're filming as it comes down, and you can see it looks like something passes underneath the ice, something massive like a giant whale or something just passes underneath the ice, and the ice is real thick there. I think it's like a half a mile or something, but you still see it. You're like, what the hell was that? You kind of like, was that the boogeyman? What the hell was that? I mean, but they don't want to talk about that kind of stuff because, it must have been a block of ice moving. Yeah, it might have been a block of ice. It might have been something else.
This begs the basic question. Why the secrecy? We're not stupid. We can handle the fact that we are not alone.
Well, first off, we think we found life somewhere. We're going to be sending all kind of people there to go find it. Really, we don't even want to kind of spend that kind of money right now, but humans are funny like that. Well, it's like when we found out the African continent and then the South American continent. We can't help ourselves. We're explorers by nature, and so we're like rats and roaches. We go everywhere, and that's what will happen. Any place we find life, we'll be all over trying to use it, abuse it, get it, be the first one to see it, whatever. It's like the asteroid belt. Eventually, probably in our lifetime, maybe in grandkids' lifetime, you're going to see people living in the asteroid belt on a regular basis. They're going to be mining and moving. I mean, there are asteroids out there worth $1 trillion, people. Do you really think we're going to leave them out there forever? And once we clean out all the asteroids between us and Jupiter, there's a whole nother, then there's everything around Saturn, and then there's the Oort cloud. I mean, we can be cleaning out for decades. Shit, for longer than that, probably 200-300 years. And then our solar system will be clean of debris. We won't even have to worry about getting hit by asteroids or meteors or comets. We'll be clean. Oh, here comes an ice comet. Let's snatch it when it gets in here. It ain't even going to get around us. It's just, the way of things. We can't help ourselves. We're humans. And I think that's one of the things aliens like or dislike about us is, they know we're going to keep plugging forward till we get into deep space. They know, just like we know, it's just a matter of time. And do you want these crazy-ass nuclear-armed humans in space? And by then, we'll have much bigger weapons, than we have now. We'll have planet busters. George Bush, most people didn't realize this, but George Bush had commissioned 2 planet busters. Whether or not they ever got finished is anybody's guess. There was all kind of rumors about them. Planet busters, one of them is enough to split the planet in half. Mm-hmm. It's some ungodly amount of power. It's just ridiculous. And it was said to be in rumor because Russia had one. Really, do we need planet busters? And if we got planet busters and we're not going to use them on other planets that we don't like or we need to get minerals out of or something, I mean, come on. What do we need these for? And, in another 100 years, we'll have weapons that, we're right now we're working on all kind of new power generation. So pretty soon we're going to be away from the old nuclear style and then the cold fusion, and then we're going to be moving forward. And, you'll have little reactors that power your car, that can power your house, or you'll have a reactor in your house that makes hydrogen or something else that powers your car. But basically, once it's installed in your house, you'll have free power. You won't be paying any bills or anything. You'll just be paying for the initial reactor, and that's it. And they'll probably last 50, 80, 100 years. And even if they only last 10, they're going to be something that's recyclable and reusable on a regular basis. And these will be clean and efficient power. So, as these kind of things come on, we're just going to develop further and further and further, and our weapons will get more powerful. And as long as we're not a united world, there'll always be the chance that we can crack our own planet up. But if we ever unite, then all we got to concentrate on, because the oceans ain't going to take long to finish exploring, so all we got left to do is space. The final frontier.
How many alien abductions are there in a year? What I'm reading in chat.
How many alien abductions are there? Oh, my God. Oh, that would be arguable by, well, I don't know if you can actually put a number on it, because the way it really works out is if you're in a contactee, say, between age 0 and, say, age 10, you're probably getting taken about 4 times a year. Sometimes with your mom or your dad when you get taken, but most of the time, probably about 4 times a year. When you hit puberty, that can go up to 4 times a week, up until age 30. So you do the math. That's one person we're talking about. So, and then when they get out of that and they get into their 30s, contact changes again. And you'll start noticing there, depending on what they're using the person for, it could either drop significantly or stay up to maybe 2 times a week, or maybe 4 or 5 times a month, where they're being taken for like 24 or 48 hours on any given time. So it's a lot. You couldn't really do it because we estimate the population of abductees are between 10 and 15% of the population, which drives everyone crazy because it's like 1.2 billion, 1.4 billion people. And if you started just saying if it was just one, just one person being taken one time, it's 1.5 billion. If you start talking about 10 times or 50 times or 100 times, that number gets up fast into the hundreds of billions. So that's the thing. It's a much bigger thing than most people realize. And by the way, before anybody asks me, no, there's 1.5 billion contactees. They're not all being taken at the same time. And a lot of them probably aren't even being taken anymore. We figure about half of everybody gets taken from birth to up about 30. After 30, a lot of those people don't have contact anymore. Matter of fact, the only time they would even have the aliens come back and revisit them is if they had children. They'd be coming back to check on the children or the grandchildren.
Which proves that they go down in family lines. And let me add to your number is Preston Dennett, through his own research, uncovered that it's approximately 1 in 40 people. I thought that's a really huge number, but he said that even within his own circle of talking to people in his family and friends, he was able to identify people that would fit that pattern. I personally have found that.
It's much bigger than people think it is. It's just hard to put a number on. I mean, researchers agree 10 to 15%, but it could be as low as 5. It could be as high as 25. The problem with this is look at it from a different way. Let's say 100,000 years ago, there were 10,000 original abductees. Or let's just say there was 10,000 for each alien. Okay, so 30,000 abductees. Okay, so back then, having 5 or 10 kids wasn't even a big thing. So now these 10,000 just in one generation is now 50,000, in 2 generations 150,000, in 3 generations 250,000. All right, that's 750,000 just across those 3 generations, and we've only gone 100 years. Now, since then, it's been 100,000 years. Do you know the actual number of people who have alien blood in them on the planet? Everybody does. Everybody on the planet's been touched. It's just they're only interested in the original family lines and their descendants, which spread out from that point. And I guess if the blood gets too thin, then they stop and they move on. Yeah, but they're only looking for those family lines, and they're looking for particular things in those family lines. They're looking for strengths and all sorts of stuff. And people say, "Oh, well, they get mad." Well, they do, because you can do things that pisses them off. But in some ways, when you do things, especially with telepathic or empathic abilities, or even telekinesis, they seem to act more like proud parents than, or maybe a good pet. Oh, that's my good puppy. Yeah, that's a good puppy. Yeah. Scratch your belly and shit. But they do seem to do that. I mean, they seem in a lot of ways to want us to make it. I just don't know if they would interfere to stop us if we did something stupid. Everything suggests that if we humans decided to wipe out the planet, they would not interfere. They may take the contactees, but they would not interfere with the rest of the population. So, guys, be careful. Here's all I can say. As far as the contactees go, well, hopefully you're around before the nuke goes off. Hopefully they get to you before the nuke goes off. It's a scary thing, because, and that's another thing. In a lot of ways, I don't know if they even worry about it, because if we could nuke the whole planet, turn this bitch glowing, and they could probably reverse it in, no time at all. So if we wipe it out, we're just giving them a planet. I mean, like thank you. That'd be like the day Earth stood still. Here's your new planet.
But here's the question: does it even belong to us in the first place? What if it's theirs already?
Well, and we argue about that all the time. So possession is 9/10 of the law, at least in our world. So we possess the damn planet, so it's ours. But we don't actually know if we possess it. There could be a whole world underneath, or
yeah, that's right,
right out of phase or something. So we don't really actually know. But it does appear, because of the map of the Creator and a couple other things that we see in the Pravda map and some other stuff, that there was a race here before us, and it was an advanced race before us. Was that the reptilians, and do they actually have a claim? You know what bothers me? The Greys look at us one way, the humans look at us another way, and the reptilians are more like kindred spirits to us. And what I mean by that is they're the ones that originally gave us that little spark that set us free from the other aliens, and brought the species to be that's here today. So in a lot of ways, we act like them. We're furious. In one way, we're real sweet and honest and loving and caring. And the other way, we're vicious. And they're just, in a lot of ways, we shadow their moods and attitudes. And it's kind of strange. And it's just that small spark that's in us, but it seems to be a strong spark that's in us. And they look at us more like young children, like relatives, because they believe in family lines. So they look at it more like, yeah, we're more like young, stupid children. Even though some of us possess their genetic memory, they still look at us like we're stupid, And they want you to stand up and be counted for. So when you're dealing with them, you can't be mealy-mouthed or sweet. You've got to project both in volume and in thought. And as long as you do that, they'll respect you. And it's way easier dealing with them like that. If you just whine and whimper, they'll just consider you just whatever and just do whatever the hell they feel like. It's just how their society works. But for the most part, they seem to be an agrarian society, but yet everybody says they have a huge ass military that goes along with it. So I think they're more like the society is probably is set up in different types of units. You might have a religious faction, you might have a warrior faction, you might have all kind of little factions, but it seems like that's how it's set up. But it does seem like you have an alpha on all sides, and both male and female. And here on Earth, we seem to have a issue with sex. I don't think they do. They definitely define themselves as male and female, and in an alpha superior kind of way. So that's got to make it even harder on some humans here, because it's not an attitude that is at least in these countries that's projected. I can't speak for all the rest of the countries on the planet, but for the free world countries, it's something that's not projected. So it's got to make it even harder on people, or scarier, or however you want to look at it. But they do believe that, hey, look, this is it. This is how it works. We've been around for 700 million years. Maybe you want to pay attention. You little stupid humans been around 2 million years. We've been around 700 million years. Who's the survivor here? So I think in a lot of ways we are kind of kindred to them. When it comes to the human aliens, they seem to either like you or dislike you. There doesn't seem to be any middle ground there. And the Greys, what's most interesting about the Greys is the Grey that's abducting you is probably the Grey that abducted your grandparents 10,000 years ago.
Yeah, a lot of people do mention that. As a matter of fact, that woman that I was talking about earlier, about an hour ago almost, whose abduction, that she's been abducted all her life, and so was her mother and grandmother, but that time that she saw her son in the abduction, clearly it was the same group that took her and her son, and that had been taking her since she was a little girl.
Yeah, what bothers me, the Greys pretty much have an endless lifespan, but what's bothering me about it is they seem to get intimately familiar with family lines. And not all of them. I mean, I have heard some of them go away, but for the most part, a lot of families can, for as far back as they can date. You got to remember, we have cases now. Actually, it used to be 6. Well, I think we're going to have a 7-generation case, because it looks like somebody's going to make it while the great-great-grandmother's still alive. So, but right now we have several 6th-generation cases, a lot of 5-generation cases. Well, we've documented across 6 generations of family what's going on here with these ladies or these gentlemen, and they'll talk about the same Grey. Not just that, they'll talk about it in a personality way. Like the Grey gives off a type of personality. And though you can't tell by looking at a Grey if they're male or female, they do seem to have a personality that would suggest one or the other. Which is odd, because I don't even think they breed like that anymore. But a lot of people tell you it's the same thing, that it feels like that. Now, I couldn't tell you for sure, but a lot of people say that they can sense it when they're scanning them or when they're in their heads or something. And we tell contactees all the time, don't be scared to get into their head. It's a two-way street. They want your head to get in their head. Yeah, they get pissed about it sometimes. Sometimes they'll use the thing on you and knock your ass out, but still, you might learn something. Once you're in there, they still got to get you out. It takes a few seconds or a few whatever. It's still, they're telling how much you can see in that couple of microseconds you're in there.
Now, you mentioned the Nordic type of humanoids, the human-looking aliens, the Greys, reptilians. What about what a lot of people report either on ships or even wandering the streets sometimes, which are the praying mantis-looking type?
Oh, those are puppets, man. Real puppets. They're like, No. Here's something for you about the mantis. I've had lots of reports about them. They're almost always associated with another type of alien, or there's another type of alien nearby. But a lot of times what you'll hear about people is they'll talk about the man is sitting there or standing there, and they're kind of being intimidating. Okay. It's a praying mantis. I mean, they look kind of intimidating to start off, wouldn't you think?
Yeah, especially make that huge. I mean, you know what I mean? Take that little praying mantis, make it life-size.
We don't have any reports of them lopping people's hands or heads off or anything like that, or even hurting humans for that matter. So we were doing a regression on a lady. God, this is like 15 years ago. And we were in her head, and we're talking to her, and she's describing this praying mantis, and it was two reptilians there with it. And they were talking to her, and she said, I realized when I was watching it that it was moving like something else was controlling. She said, first I thought it was being controlled by thought. She said, but I think it was being controlled by some type of control, because every now and then it was like its head was like tilt off and tilt down to the left or something. Like whoever was working it relaxed their finger or something for a second. And so we heard that, and I didn't know what to make of it at that time. So we just logged it. Well, so we had some volunteers. We did a thing on the internet where we asked for volunteers that had seen the praying mantis and if they would mind if we could regress them and see what we could see. And come to find out, in a lot of these, they gave similar descriptions. So we started thinking that maybe this wasn't real in the sense that it was a real alien, but more of something that was being used to instill fear, like seeing a reptilian or a gray wasn't enough. It was a weird thing because it didn't make any sense. And it didn't make any sense that these aliens were showing up, but they really weren't communicating with us or functioning with us or even functioning with the craft. In other words, the way their hands, well, they didn't have any hands, but the way everything was made, they couldn't even really function with the spacecraft they were on. So it just 2 and 2 wasn't making 4. You know, they didn't seem to be real heavenly telepathic or anything, and they didn't seem to have any way to control the crafts they were on board. And a lot of times they would just show up like on the street. You know, like standing next to you on the street or something. And you're like, what the hell is that? They really sound like they were some type of fear factor. I don't know for sure, and I don't want to rule out that there's some kind of race out there, but first off, there's not that many cases. I mean, a lot of people talk about it, but there's not as many cases out there as people want you to think there is. And a lot of these cases are very suspect. So not to say it's like the tall white aliens that Charles Hall seen. Not to say they don't exist or they do exist, because I really don't know. It's just if you go by the evidence, it may not be what it appears to be. You know, I do believe in evidence, people. I'm sorry. It's part of the job.
No, how did you get involved with UFOs and paranormal, specifically UFOs, because paranormal could cover not just UFOs, whether it be cryptozoology, ghosts, whatever you call it, anything, Bigfoot.
I had a very good, very intelligent friend of mine tell me that she was being taken by aliens, which, by the way, I had to laugh at. I laughed my ass off. So she got mad at me. So I said, I don't believe you. You need to get psychological help. I said, no such thing as aliens. I said, well, not that there probably isn't aliens. I said, I just don't think they're here. This was 36, 37 years ago. And so a couple weeks later, I was telling someone about this. And she said, oh, no, Joe, it happens to me. I'm like, get the out of here. You know, come on. And so over like a 6-month period, I ran into just a bunch of people. And it was odd that I was even running into these people. You know, that people wanted to tell me about this. I was like, what the hell is going on here? So I met about a dozen people over that first year looking into them. And I realized most of these people, about 10 out of 12, were intelligent, articulate, had excellent careers, families, jobs, things to lose if this came out, especially back then, because it wasn't near as acceptable then as it is today. And I was like, hey, why would they tell me this? And some of these people barely knew me, and I'm like, why would they even take the chance that I wouldn't like go public? Because, you know, 2 of them I could have really heard if I went. Actually, 3 of them I could have really heard if I went public. And a couple weeks after that, a lawyer friend of mine comes up and says, hey, what do you think about UFOs? He said, you know, I had my offices done because I think they're listening to me because I started reading about UFOs and talking to people. I was like, what? So, I mean, they started raining out of they were just popping out of the woodwork. I mean, I wasn't even looking for people. And so I said, all right, I'm going to start doing some real research. I joined MUFON. I've talked to everyone I could talk to that had a contact here of an experience. About 8 years into MUFON or 7 years into MUFON, we had about 5,000 cases that from around the world in different places that we just put together. Me and other group of researchers that MUFON did, and to get our first abduction criteria to see what was in common. MUFON wasn't even interested in it, by the way. They didn't even want to see it.
Wow, why?
Yeah, because
Too
until
controversial?
recently, yeah, even now they don't like talking about alien abduction. When they first got their first STAR team about 10, 15 years ago, they didn't ever like, but they were too far behind and too lost in the game. And the people they hire to do their abduction research are morons. There's just so much that they miss and they don't understand. And I listen to them all the time. And the thing of it is, most of them are more interested in their 5 minutes of fame than they are in the actual research. And you can judge that by just going and listening to what they do on wherever they're doing it at, radio shows or their own shows or whatever. But they really missed the point when it comes to abduction research. And that's why I said they got into it so far behind everybody. I mean, come on. MUFON's supposed to be the biggest UFO organization out there, which they're not now. I think they're third behind us. The only one bigger than us now, unfortunately, is
Peter
the
Davenport's.
No.
Okay, the Raelians, the French. Yes,
yeah,
yes.
the Raelians. We're at like 56,000 members worldwide. I think the Raelians are like 70 something. But other than that, we're the only legit UFO researcher. I mean, last I heard, MUFON was only up around 3,000 or 4,000 members.
I think about 4 or 5. I think is what Jan Harzan told me last time I spoke to him.
Yeah,
under 5.
But when I seen their 503 online, I think it said 2,600 or something.
Wow.
Yeah. So I mean, I don't know what it is, and I mean, even if it is at 5,000 members, that's $40 a head per month, man. That's not bad, dude. I mean, think about it. Oh no, it's only $40 a year, isn't it? Sorry. Okay, it's still that's not bad, man. If you have 5,000 members, paying $40 each, you're making a little cha-ching there. Not a lot, but they got the conference, they got other stuff. MUFON probably generates $500,000 a year or so, but maybe a little less, depending on, because I don't know how much they had an interest in Hangar 1 or not. But they weren't doing anything alien. Matter of fact, when we sent in the thing that what happened to us in Gulf Breeze and mentioned that there was some military stuff involved, they didn't even want to talk, and we were members. I mean, we were real members, and I'd been doing serious research, and they were like, no, we don't want to talk about that. It was so weird because the letter we sent to them came back to us, cut into 1,000 pieces, right? But it had been taped back together.
What? Wow.
Oh, yeah. It had been taped back together. And I remember talking to Walt Anders about it. He said, yeah. He said, Joe, I don't know what's going on there. He said, but they wanted to prove a point. He said, because they sent it to him, and then he sent it to us. And I was like, I don't know, Walt. I mean, see, he didn't want to mess with it either because it was military abduction stuff. He didn't want to have anything to do with it. He's like, no, man, no, they might come get us. This was back in mid-90s, I believe. 94, 96, somewhere around there. 97, because I think my son was 3 or 4. But they didn't want to have anything to do with it. And when we gave them this research, we gave them a copy of it, and they were like, wow. But no, they would never publish it. They didn't want to talk about it because it legitimized alien abductions, and MUFON didn't want to legitimize. We forced MUFON into it. They didn't have a choice. That's why eventually MUFON did it, because when I got up on Wake Up USA, I started bringing on every ufologist in the field and saying, why the hell is MUFON fighting this? I got into it. Like I said, Paula Harris wouldn't even talk to me for a year because very first time I interviewed, or second time I interviewed her, I brought up alien abductions, and she got mad at me because alien abductions weren't real, or it made the field look bad.
Yeah. I remember she prefers to have things that are context. She wants to get away from things about abduction because, like Greer.
Oh no, but even then, she didn't want to do context. She didn't think that people were being taken. Period.
Yes.
Neither did Linda Moulton Howe. None of them did. We forced the issue. We kept it up. Now, like I said, I made people mad. I made all kind of Richard Dolan, a whole bunch of them, man, because they wouldn't accept it. Now they're all writing books about it, and like they're all experts on it. And that just shows you how pathetic the field has become. When the people who said they didn't exist or didn't like it or whatever, or it wasn't popular, now are all talking about it based on no real research at all. I have watched at least 24 ufologists come out and try to say that the blood type study is theirs. And you're just like, wow, really?
I know, to see your own baby in someone else's hands, or they're claiming credit, authorship of it, and that begs the question: RH negative. How did you stumble upon this? I mean, I believe from what I talking to you in the past, I think you said it was like 85% or so of abductees are Rh negative blood.
Well, not quite that high, but it's we just started seeing it. I mean, there was this thing going on about personalities and blood types and stuff you could learn by your blood type and stuff. But so we added it to the application and the report thing. If you're reporting it, there's a place in there you can give us your blood type. And then we added the link to the website at the bottom of the page. I even made this hard. Last I checked, it was like 34,000, 36,000 plus the original 40-something thousand that came in with emails. That's like 78,000 people have taken this. And I made it hard. I put it all the way at the bottom of the page. I mean, you got to scroll all the way through the entire blood type to find the poll at the bottom to take it. I did it on purpose, and you can only vote once. That's it, people. You can't get no more than one vote. And we ask only contactees to do it. We'll say about 78 or 80,000 people have taken it now. And you got to take it with a grain of salt, but 62%, 65%, it fluctuates between 58 and 56 and 58 and 66% of contactees are Rh negative. Out of that, 66%, almost 60% of them are O negative.
O negative, interesting.
Yeah, so it's very, very strange the way it works out. I think almost half of contactees have green eyes or hazel eyes or something like that. And then about 25 to 30% have blue. I really just say it like this. I'd rather say it like this. About 80% of contactees had colored eyes versus brown eyes. About 20% have brown eyes. Even though like 96% of people in the world have brown eyes. So it's weird the way it works out. It seems to be the mutations of what they're interested in, which are the colored eyes and the Rh negative blood. But still, people, well, if I got brown eyes, I'm not a contactee. No, you can still be a contactee. And no, even if you got Rh negative, Rh positive, you can still be a contactee. It just means that more and more of them are going the other way. I imagine when this started out, it was the opposite. There was more brown-eyed and Rh positive. And then when Rh negative got introduced 35,000 years ago, or 350,000, whatever the argument wants to be, then it changed. That was the kicker. That was the spark. Maybe that's the spark that gives the people the ability to be empathic and telepathic. Maybe that was the DNA refresher that we needed. There's tons of reasons we could have. I mean, it's a universal donor blood. It's the purest form of blood known to man for all of our researching. There's a lot of big positives to O negative or Rh negative. So, and I mean, having a universal donor is a great thing. It ain't so great for O negative people. O negative people, if I was you, I would keep your blood type secret. Because in a war or something, you could become a blood bank. Just thought I'd let you on that.
Yeah, I was going to say. Now, you brought up something earlier that I wanted to touch base on, and you brought it up a while ago, too, when we were talking about Travis Walton, and you offered a third narrative, because the original narrative of Travis Walton was that he and the other friends, loggers, were in the forest, and they saw what appeared to be this light, a.k.a. the fire in the sky, drove by it, and Travis, wanting to show off, gets out of the truck on the passenger side, runs behind a rock, and then apparently gets blasted 20 feet or so, and then the friends leave, and he's taken. Then, recently, he starts to say that it's more of an ambulance call, that he thinks that they didn't mean to take him, but what actually happened is while he was behind this rock, he started to hear this noise as it was powering up. And that's when he made a run for it back to the truck, and he thinks that he accidentally was hit by their propulsion system. So he thinks that they might have killed him, and since this would have been an interference with us, they took him up to repair him and bring him back, which is why they let him by the pole. Now, you gave a third narrative.
Yeah, because the problem with those theories is okay, is E.T. stupid? They didn't know you were coming? First off, you didn't even have to have sensors or anything else. You could have heard that squeaky-ass truck coming 5-10 miles up the hill. it would have been bouncing around,
Oh,
making noise.
yeah,
Plus
easy.
the light, it was dark, so you would have seen the light bouncing up and down in the sky between the trees. You'd have known it was coming down the road. So even a guy standing on the road would have known it was coming. But these are advanced aliens with sensors and stuff. They already knew they were on the mountain when they landed. But you don't think that alien didn't know there was somebody up there when they landed the spaceship? You didn't find it a coincidence that they landed next to the road?
Of course they knew. I think they would have
I mean, they
to
could have
know.
landed, think about it, this is a huge forest that they've been clear cutting. They could have landed anywhere, but they landed next to the road. Not down the road, not away, not on the other side of the forest or anything. They landed next to that damn road. And you can bet your ass that they knew Travis Walton was coming down that mountain for some time. Now, aliens don't take you by mistake, so, I mean, if he was compelled to get out that car, it's because he was being called, because all the rest of them stayed. And I found, for the most part, when people stop to see a UFO, they all get out. If they're contactees, they get away. So in this case, they were compelled to stay. He was compelled. He was being called there. Why it went the way it did is beyond any reason. But I told him that. I said, you never stop to think that they knew you were coming, Travis. I said, the reason this all happened is you were handed off to the government. I said, that's the problem here. I said, you said it yourself when you described being in that hangar and coming out that hangar and seeing them two people in that suit. They were speaking English to you, and the suits he described looked like Center for Disease Control suits.
CDC, yeah.
Yeah, so it sounds like he was handed back off to the humans, and the humans are the ones that dropped his ass off on the side of the road. And that's why it was gone so long. Because the Greys and the rest of the aliens, first, if they would have kept him that long, they would have looped some time or something. Or they would have put him back in a different way. Something maybe like they did with Travis Wall, with Whitley Strieber or something. But there was just, it didn't make sense that these aliens didn't know he was there. See, he's assuming that he's standing in a spacecraft and the aliens don't know he's there. I would imagine it had been some warning like, stupid human under spaceship, stupid human under spaceship. I just don't believe it's an accident. I know he wants to feel that way, and people always want to do this. Make aliens make human mistakes. It's highly unlikely they are, but more importantly than that, our ships today would tell you if there was something underneath it. Even our cars now could tell you if there's somebody in the lane next to you, and you don't think a spacecraft from another world didn't know there was something underneath it, or that he was coming down the hill. They were waiting for his ass. He's a contactee, and I told him that. I said, you're a contactee. You've probably been a contactee all your life. I said, this just is the time that you remembered because there was witnesses. I said, there wouldn't have been witnesses. You probably wouldn't even remember this time. And then Steve Pierce, of course, says he was taken too now.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. I didn't know what to make of it because, see, one day Travis, we're going back to 2013 now, when I was on Revolution Radio. Travis was scheduled to do a show, and something had come up and he needed to reschedule. In his place, he offers Steve. And I was pretty blown away that Steve said that he had been abducted even prior to Travis. And I thought that was kind of weird. That why didn't he mention it before? What do you make of that?
Because they already thought his ass was crazy. Why would he mention it before? Honestly, I don't know if he's telling the truth or not. I've talked to Steve a couple of times. He's a nice guy and all. And he passed the polygraph like everybody else did. So he's probably not lying. I mean, he might be actually telling us the truth. And you got to remember, sometimes these events bring out stuff. I've asked Travis before, why don't you let me get into your head, Travis? And, it's like him and who was it? Oh, what's his name? From California, from Florida. He's got oh, man, what the hell is his name? Tom. Oh, man, he owns a modeling studio. I can't think of his damn name. His family's abductees and contactees.
Tom Reed. Tom Reed.
Yeah. With these guys, I've told them before that it may not be exactly what they think it is. It's hard to explain, but a lot of what you see is how can I explain this? You force yourself to see it, and what I mean by that is your mind a lot of times cannot understand certain things that are going on around you. So it starts to it's like when you see a face in a fire or a face in a cloud, that's your mind making something there that's not actually there. The fire is there, but the face isn't. So it's you do that. You can, and then on top of that, you can only judge your surroundings by what you understand. So certain alien technologies and certain things that aliens do, you're not going to be able to understand because there's no frame of reference for you. It would be like trying to explain this computer to a caveman. He'd just take a club and beat the crap out of it. As soon as it started talking or flashing lights, it would be toast. He wouldn't understand. You'd try to explain the concept to him. Or even go back just 200 years and try to explain the concept of a cell phone to someone. You would be getting burned at the witch trials. So, I mean, it's the same thing. And unfortunately for them, they just don't always grasp what's actually going on or how much of it is actually going on. Because, I like all these guys. I've talked to them dozens and dozens of times, but it's hard to take yourself out of the contact and see it from above. Matter of fact, when I do hypnosis, it's one of the ways I like to do it, so that the person can remove their self and look at it from the same way I'm looking at it, from outside. It's less stress on them that way, and they can actually see the contact and know what they were experiencing without reliving the emotional aspects, which we do sometimes too, but we tried, if we don't have to, not to let them relive that emotional experience.
Well, of course, it's traumatic. A lot of people suffer from PTSD, or what was known after World War II as shell shock. Now, let me ask you, dig a little further into the CDC, because in my mind, I'm thinking my lab, military abductions.
Well, that's Betty and Barney Hill. That's the case. When you listen to their original descriptions, don't go listen to Kathleen Waldron because she's exaggerated it. But if you go back and listen to their original experience, she talks about swinging stainless steel doors, pull open drawers, paperback books, needles and razors for scraping and taking samples. Okay, she even described people in these suits. So the thing about it is aliens don't use needles to take blood samples. None of them do. I've never heard of any aliens actually using a hypodermic needle to take blood. I've never heard of them using a razor blade to scrape skin samples or take fluid samples or urine samples by peeing in a cup. That is CDC. And matter of fact, what she describes is classic CDC. It might have been the beginning of it, but I'm almost positive that the alien abduction experience with Betty and Barney Hill inside the United States was a military abduction. It was not an alien abduction. What happened in Canada was the alien abduction. And since we know they were taken in Canada, I don't understand why Kathleen saying has such a hard time with it, because by their own words, they said they could not remember the hotel they stayed in. Even though they were having breakfast across the street from the hotel that morning, they could not remember the name of the hotel. They could not remember the name of the breakfast. And when they stopped to ask for directions, she described him as a white Irish policeman, and Barney described him as a black man.
Conflicting.
Same guy, completely different description. And more than that, when you listen to Barney on the hypnosis, because I think I still all have him, when you listen to him on the hypnosis, he describes guys in black pants, black shoes, black shirts, walking up, putting their arms and looping them and walking him up a set of stairs into a craft. Okay, that is not alien. That's classic. You just got taken by the government. So I think when they came home, that's what was going on. That's why there's 3 sets of memories instead of 2, because there's that 3rd set of memories in there when they got mill labs. So they got taken in Canada. When they couldn't remember where they were or who the cop was, they were taken. They were on board the craft probably then. They were put back not long after they were put back, because they were probably put back right there by the U.S. Canada line. When they came back in to Connecticut, they were taken. The U.S. took them, did all sorts of experiments on them, and then they released them. And it's not just that wasn't their first time. People didn't realize this, and I talked about this. Barney was the contactee. Barney had been having emotional problems since a young man. This is a black man who married a white woman. Okay, this black man knew 3 colonels in the U.S. Air Force, and one of them lived in his house with him. He knew 2 other high-ranking colonels. He was invited to the White House.
Interesting.
Yeah. And he married a white woman, which was strange back in the day. And you haven't noticed, no one ever talks about it was a black and white couple back in their 60s and 70s.
Which very controversial at the early 60s.
But for some reason, it never got talked about. So, we know he was the one that was being taken. He was the one being watched. And we know that the government knew when he got taken. So when he did, they picked him up. And they wanted to try to get right then and there. They wanted to get him right when he got back to see what kind of environment the aliens lived in. They were really trying to get like a composite of the air materials in there. But for some reason, Kathleen wrote a book and it contradicts her book. They talk about the stains and address. Yeah, whatever. That's not any evidence. You couldn't even admit that in court. The 3 little discs on the back thing. These are all things way after the fact. We're talking 30 years after the fact. That's not evidence, people. Oh, the star map. No, there's no star map. I can match stars all over the skies at night. That's an easy thing to do. There's lots of stars. That ain't the star map because there was no point of origin. The aliens never gave them a point of origin, so therefore there can never be a star map. You'd have to know where it actually was in order to get to it. You can match stars that look alike all day long. So, there was just no real evidence to suggest that it was an alien abduction. It sounded more like a military abduction, and that's what it is. And I got to tell you, more people believe me today than they believe them. So, because it's a better uptake. If you listen to and by the way, ladies and gentlemen, there are lots of interviews with Betty and Barney Hill from the 70s and 60s that you can go listen to on radio from back in the day and listen to them talking. And Barney clearly describes men in black shoes, black pants, black shirts, and black duck-billed caps. He's not describing aliens. Now, you can tell later on when he's talking about the alien, you can hear it in his voice when he's talking about the alien, and he ain't saying nothing about black caps and black duck-billed shoes or anything. But that was not in that experience. It was a different experience. So, it's like I said about ufology again. These are people, for some reason, instead of getting to the truth, are more interested in selling books.
How long do you think this military abduction's been going on, or humans taking other humans and blaming it on ETs?
Betty and Barney Hill might have been the first set of human abductions. We don't really know. Since they started this back, there was 3 projects before Blue Book. There's Project Science, Project Grudge. All of these projects go back 40s, 30s. It may go back as far as the early 1900s when we were once we knew people were being taken, we started taking people. It wasn't until modern times that we figured out how to at least kind of block the memory out, or hide the memory, or let them know that they haven't gone totally crazy. It's a tough thing, but people ask me all the time, well, the government don't need to know that they know everything. No, the government don't know shit. If the government knew anything, they wouldn't have to MILAB people. That's the whole point, ladies and gentlemen. If they knew what the hell was going on, they wouldn't need to take them. But since their cells aren't being taken, and ET's not really sharing any information, the only real way to find it out, you think they're out there with magnifying standards of craft? No. They've got to find people in contact, legitimate people in contact with legitimate answers. That's why I tell people all the time, when you go public, you're asking to be MILAB. If you're off the radar and the government don't know who you are, and you go out in public and say, yeah, I'm being taken and I know these things, odds are you're going to get MILAB'd after that. It's a good chance. Because if they think you know something, they're going to pick you up. Now, sometimes ET interferes and stops it, and there's the other things that happen, but they'll probably come take you. Now, if you just come out and say you're a contactee, but you're just a contactee, you're not one of these ones that learn how to drive or how the engines work or been uploaded to consciousness, they may leave you alone. But it is good risk when you come public. And, oh, no, Chris, there's a lot of people who are taken by the government that we don't know about, because they found that other words like the grandmother, the great-grandmother, somebody may have had psychological problems and ended up in a hospital and said that this is what they saw. Once these are in any mental institutions, these are all picked up by the government, so they know who these families are because they know your family's being taken. Just like I know the abducted family lines, which pissed them off when I went public with it 25 years ago, they know as well. And they can follow those family lines. And you can bet anybody related to Barney is probably still being taken even today. Anybody of any consequence anyway that's useful. Or his immediate family, brothers, sisters, mothers, whoever. But I never believed that Betty was the contactee. She always was more like the one that was along for the ride. I interviewed it several times, and Barney, you could tell. It's hard to explain, but when you're listening and talking to a contactee, it's part of their soul, man. It's gut wrenching a lot of times, and I just never felt that with Betty. No disrespect intended. I liked the lady; she was a lot of fun to talk to, but I think she was just the one, that happened to be there when it happened.
Witness, basically.
Yeah, because they weren't really doing all these experiments to her; they were doing them to him. If you listen to what's going on, that's what she's saying. And she describes like these pull-down maps and all. When Kathleen Reed did the book, she said digital monitors. No, that's not what she said. See, that's changing the story to try to modernize it to try to sell your book, but that's not what was said. You're changing the meaning because it's important to understand the pull-down thing. There ain't no pull-down maps in alien spacecraft. Sorry, they're just not. And it's typical. A lot of what she described was, like the types of needles she described, and pull-down maps, and the hardback books, and the drawers that slid in and out, and the stainless. That was period. She was describing things for the period she lived in, not from some freaking advanced extraterrestrial. And I don't know why so many people had a problem with that until I came out on Coast to Coast and said, wait a minute, something's not right with this story. And then I was a black-headed stepchild for like 5 years after that. But the evil stepchild. I can't believe, anytime I say anything against ufology and what they think is a case that's rock solid, I catch hell for it. I'm like, guys, it's a better theory. I'm sorry. It's still just a theory. Don't get all bent out of shape.
What is your favorite abduction case?
I can't tell you that. I'd have to kill you.
Okay.
No, I'm serious. I would actually have to kill you. Well, but I can tell you like my third or fourth one. One of the ones I like to talk about is there's a group down in Florida. A couple lives in Florida. And now it's an LGBT couple because she used to be married to a man. Now she's married to a woman. They got 3 daughters and a son, right? And 2 from the first marriage, 2 from the second marriage. But anyway, from time to time, these little grays come screw around in her yard. When these videos first came out, they were fake. Somebody was making fake videos of a true story. So I contacted her and I said, what's going on? I said, I talked to her once before. I said, I know you don't fake these. This is something close to your heart. And she said, no, I'm not. And she had sent me some pictures of some, that she thought were the grays. And we had them in hands. And that's what they were. It was like standing behind a fence. It was like they would come, she had a white picket fence. They would come peek through the fence. And they were just screwing with the kids and stuff. And with her, they weren't being vicious or anything. It was just like they were, almost like they were being playful. They would catch them in different poses and different things hanging out and stuff, and it was a very strange case. But the grays just seemed to be kind of playful. It was 3-4 foot grays. They weren't the real tall ones, but they just seemed to be 3 or 4 and buzzing around all the time in the yard. And they'd come sit, like one of them was sitting in the swing, and one was just standing by the back door. But they weren't like dragging them out by their feet like you hear in other stories and like that. It just seemed like it was just kind of laid back, like they didn't want the kids to be scared. It's not the first time I've heard that about not wanting the kids to be scared, because when you talk to kids the very first time, like 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9-year-old kids, they almost always, oh, my bug-eyed friend, my reptilian friend. They're not scared of them. They haven't done anything to be scared. Matter of fact, everything they've done was treat them, the way they wouldn't be scared. So here you've got a 5-year-old kid talking about a 8-foot reptilian with big, claws and teeth, and he don't even seem to be remotely scared of it. Right there alone should be going, what the hell's going on here? But not even a little bit. And these 2 twin boys used to describe the red and blue dragons. That's what they called 2 of the grays that came. They said they called the other one the black dragon because he was mean, but the other ones are red and blue dragons. And they actually were the reptilians. He described them. What's interesting about this, and this was a tidbit we didn't even realize we had at the time. So they're describing them. Well, we found out later on through a lot of other discussion. Reptilians have different color. They're not scales. They kind of look like scales, but they're not. They're more like hard leather. I don't know what the hell you'd call them, but sometimes they're on their chest or the neck or the side of the head or something. They'll be colored, like red or blue or yellow or orange. There's like 7 or 8 colors been reported now. Some people think it's like family orientation or something, or maybe rank or something. I don't know what it is. But it is interesting that these kids had picked it up way back when without even realizing it. I mean, we picked it up without even realizing it. So that's what's the good thing about keeping data. You could go back and look. It's just doesn't mean anything. It's just an interesting tidbit. It's just something you learn that helps identify the reptilians. And maybe that's how they identify the families. Because, they talk about reptilian families like we talk about the Aquarian families, the Dracos. And there seems to be a lot of reptilian worlds out there. And, there may be different ones doing different things.
Well, what
But
about
they're
the
the same
take
race,
that
though.
dinosaurs evolved into these reptilians?
We thought about that, but the problem here is I've talked about this on air. And a good regular caller, Callie, called in one night. And we were talking about the reptilians are supposed to be 750 million years old. The problem with that is reptilians only evolved on the planet about 270, 300 million years ago. So the reptilians would be older than the dinosaurs on the planet. So what we think happened is they were just passing by one day and noticed there was reptilians here and said, hey, let's go check it out, and probably set up a colony. And because, like I said, the map of the creator, the Pravda map and all, suggests that that's what happened, that some advanced race was here that had set up a colony that was living here. And they weren't us. They weren't human. So, and then, of course, the catastrophes all struck, which some people still think that might have been a war between reptilians, humans, and greys or something else, something toward the solar system, or something caused a major catastrophe. Because we know, you can see the big splatter mark on Mars where it hit about 60 million years ago. We know Earth was hit about 60 million years ago. We're pretty sure now that Venus was hit. So Mars went into global cooling, Venus went into a global thing, and Earth got turned into the perfect little planet.
I remember that day, it was a couple months ago at this point, actually, almost 2.5, 3 months ago, when you had Dr. Turi on and I came on, and I heard you saying...
Who's Dr. Turi?
Louis Turi.
Never heard of him, man. Never heard of him.
Anyway, I remember you mentioned two things that I thought were amazing that we should talk about real quick. One is the day cycle here, right? And our circadian rhythm and how it's off.
It is off. It's good.
The other thing is the nitrogen and oxygen in our atmosphere. Why, if we only breathe oxygen, is our atmosphere mostly nitrogen? Because you would think that if we were created by somebody else or something else, then we would live in something that has pure oxygen. So the inference is that
pure
we
oxygen.
move
pure
here.
Oxygen, pure oxygen would make us high all the time. You'd be like, "Ooh, yeah, I'm feeling good."
That's
man.
true. That's true. I know what you're saying.
But it is weird because there's a lot of science that suggests that the human body is set to a 24.25-hour day, and of course, we all know Earth is set to a 23.75-hour day. The only planet in the solar system set to a 24.25-hour day is Mars. Now, more and more of this research seems to be disappearing off the internet, but there's still quite a few of them out there to talk about this. More than that, though, the optimal body temperature, I always get this confused. It's either 63 or 73 degrees, but Mars at its heyday was the optimal temperature for humans, not for the planet we live. In other words, the planet we live on today is shorter than our biological clock and hotter than the optimal planet for humans. So it's almost like we were dumped here, or we were sent here or something. It's not like we evolved here. Even though we share common ancestry with everything on the damn planet, it doesn't seem like we actually came from this damn planet. It's more like we came from something else. And people tell me all the time about different theories. Let me explain. Any way it goes, ladies and gentlemen, you're an alien, okay? Let me explain to you why. Either God put you here, which means you weren't native to Earth. He said, oh, or she said, oh, or it said, oh, nobody down here. Let's put some people down here. So you're alien. You weren't from here. Panspermia brought you here, which is the building blocks of life. You came from somewhere else in space. So still, you're an alien. And if ET put you here, you're still an alien. So my point is does the guy really give a shit about any of y'all? You bunch of aliens. Maybe she wants you to get off her back and leave her alone for a while. People always like, Gaia's going to save us. I said, maybe you're praying to the wrong damn Gaia. Maybe you should be praying to the one on Mars. Because you really don't know if we're actually native to this planet. As far as this guy is concerned, y'all might be little rodents aggravating her, little roaches. She's probably trying to figure out some kind of plague to get rid of you people. Everybody's going to go home. No, we can't hate on Gaia. No. I'm just saying, ladies and gentlemen, it just seems like the human body was designed for a different planet. And it's, it suggests that there's something else going on here in our evolution. Or maybe we're evolving to live on a different planet. Who knows? But something's going on. And Rh negative out of the blue. There's a lot of strange things, all these mutations in our blood. There's a lot of strange things going on that warrant a much more serious investigation. with someone with way more understanding of blood than I have. And I've worked with a few doctors on this, and they all find this interesting, by the way. When I tell them about this and what we found, they all find it interesting. Of course, they don't know what it means, but they find it interesting. But it makes them rethink their theories about Rh negative because, it sounds like it was an accident. It just popped out of the blue by Mother Nature, but we know Mother Nature wouldn't have created it because it kills babies back in the day. Because you couldn't Rh negative and Rh positive couldn't have babies together; they would die. So Mother Nature wouldn't really actually create it. That's something else had to have. So it makes them rethink a lot of stuff, but it's still not something they can admit in public because they have to have careers and jobs, and you know how it is. I have to feed my children. I have to feed my wife. I have to feed my dog. I have to feed everybody, so I can't be telling y'all about stuff like this because they won't let me feed my family anymore.
Now,
but it's getting better.
What do you think? I know we only got a few minutes left. Technically, we should be off air. You say we can go a few minutes over.
Go ahead.
Let me ask you about time travel, because if we can affect a gravitational wave, an artificial wave, then time travel automatically becomes a fact. It's no longer fiction.
But I got a question for you. So, if you knew there was a super omnipotent race of beings, or several of them hanging around here, do you think they would actually let you time travel?
No, hell no.
Or do you think they would lie? Well, I mean, this is the weird part about talking about this. For the most part, it does not look like they will interfere with the normal activity of our planet. But when it comes to time travel, I don't know if they consider that normal activity.
It's not.
Or if that can risk what they're here to do.
Because the ripple effect. Yeah, easy.
So, but something we do back then might wipe them out. We might create a plague, or some plague might not get in. It might wipe us out. It's one of those things that you got to kind of wonder about if they would actually let us do it. And time travel don't sound like it's as easy as we'd like to think it is. And then there's the other problem with time travel, which it just gets so complicated. First off, one of the biggest problem with time travel is once you travel, you're no longer in your timeline anymore. So how can you affect anything in your timeline if you're not in it anymore? Because you step out of it. So when you step out of your timeline, it changes. It turns into something else. So you're somewhere in between. When you come back, there may actually be another one of you in the timeline you came back in. Because you just don't exactly know. People think they can travel along their own timeline, but no. Once you're off the timeline, it's going to reset itself because you don't exist anymore. It's
never thought of it that way. I know. I see your point about obviously stepping out of your timeline. You can no longer go back in it. That's like the whole river, right, where it breaks off into another area, another flow. Once you enter that flow, that's where you're going to be.
You might come back to the same exact time and moment, but it's probably not your timeline. It's probably an alternative timeline.
Kind of like Back to the Future Part 2. When Marty comes back to 1985.
So how do you correct it? How are you going to fix that? I mean, you keep going along until you fracture and split back into another timeline that's really close to yours. I mean, it just gets complicated. I mean, and of course, then you got all these ripple effects and what happens if you do this, what happens if you do that, or what happens if you spit on a concrete and the universe explodes. I mean, it's just so much shit you got to take notice of. What the hell was that bug crawling across my desk? Oh man, now the inside's coming into the outside, or the outside's coming into the inside, I should say.
It's that time of the year.
There's just so much, though, to wonder about when we're dealing with all this, and when the different alien races, why are they here? What do they want? Why are they still here? What could they possibly still be abducting people for? That's even if it's only been 10,000 years. Do you know how many times they've been abducted in 10,000 years? I mean, is there anything else they need to know about us? I mean, come on. I mean, how much can they actually need to know? Or what else is there? Let me rephrase that. What else is there left to know after 10,000 years and a billion contactees? I mean, is there anything you don't know? I mean, you're probably intimate with every body part we have. It's just, it makes me wonder what they're still doing here. Or is this going to be forever? I mean, is this going to be a forever thing until we get old enough to say, hey, stop it? Or we're going to start a war or something. I mean, how long is this going to actually go on? And in the end, when we do get to stop it, are they going to even apologize for all the crap they've done to us for tens of thousands of years? That's why there'll never be disclosure. And I've tried to explain this to 100 million people. how can you disclose? There's, what are you going to do? I mean, when the citizens say, okay, you let me get taken by extraterrestrials, I want something in return now. And what are they going to say? Is ET going to come contradict that person was taken? I mean, the government's screwed. And then all these people have been keeping this secret. They'll all be looking at prosecution. So, I mean, why would anybody want to come forward under those kind of conditions?
They wouldn't. That's why I don't think anyone really will. And that's why I have to ask you, did you remember when I spoke to Richard Doty?
Mm-hmm.
That interview really blew me away for two reasons. One is there was always a piece of Skinny Bob footage, also Family Vacation. That's what it's called, is this piece of footage on YouTube that alleges to be this old footage from either 42 up to 69 that has like a KGB stamp in the beginning of it. And it looks fairly real, and you'd like to think it was. And according to Richard Doty, it is. That's one thing. This other thing is that he said that they don't really care if he talks about ETs anymore. He can't talk about technology or medicine. But why him? What about others who are involved?
Well, no, Doty was outed as a disinformation guy like 15 years ago.
Yeah.
He's definitely, the problem with Doty is there's probably some truth in there, but you don't know what it is. That's the kind of information he's always been. And the government's always been like that, not just with him, but with others. They'll give you one fact in every 50 pieces of shit they put out there, or maybe one fact in every 100 pieces. But that's the problem. How can you tell what's what? I mean, really, in his case, how do you know what he's lying about, and how do you know what he's telling the truth about? Since the majority of what he's telling you is a lie, how are you going to distinguish? So much of it gets lost in the whitewash because you can't trust him. And I don't know what you do. I mean, 'cause I had heard a lot of stuff when I first started doing radio, and I forgot who it was that outed him. One of the people he was in touch with outed him. I just don't remember who it was. But they brought it out that what he was and who he was, and
maybe Linda.
I don't know. It was so long ago. I don't want to pretend like I remember.
That's okay.
But somebody definitely outed him on it, and after that, you were kind of like, well, what are you going to do? It was one of the guys I think he was giving information to or something. I still kind of half-heartedly remember it, but it's what do you do? Well, how can you trust anything he says from this point forward? So you just take it, listen to what they say. It's kind of like Dulcie. How much of Dulcie do you think is true and how much is not? Do you really think there's ongoing firefights there with Grays?
I wouldn't think so, because if there was a firefight, we'd be wiped out in a heartbeat.
Yeah, I mean, what the Grays can kill you by thought, much less anything else. So what firefight's going on? Oh, when you put the gun to your head and blow your brains out? So these are the kind of things, but these are the kind of stories, unfortunately, that get traction in the field because they sound so good, but they're, and instead of people using common sense when it comes to alien abductions or alien anything, they don't. They just go off on these tirades where they want to make you think the most salacious, outrageous things. And unfortunately, a lot of times those are not true. It's like abductees. How much of what an abductee really remembers is real, and how much is what his mind made up to protect him and herself? There's a lot of work in this. And, like I said, I've been in it 37 years now. And don't get me wrong, I know a lot of crap these days, a lot more than I did when I got into the field. But, somebody asked me that day, write a book, do this, do that. My problem is, how much of this do I actually want to make public? We make a lot of stuff public, but we do keep about 50% of what we know is secret. So, I mean, what is my motivation to make it public? So that more people can tell me they're an alien abductee? Well, we got plenty of them calling every week. So, what is it that would make me want to put that information out there? Does it help to would it keep me safer if I put it out there? Not really. I've been told more than once not to talk about alien agendas. I've been threatened more than once not to talk about alien agendas.
Who threatened you?
Oh, who else threatened you? The government.
Well, yeah, but what arm? DIA? I mean, most people say CIA, but the CIA can't operate on domestic borders.
Most of the time when I seen them, they were like in gray Armani suits, really nice suits. You could tell they were well tailored suits. They were packing. We got their tag numbers, but when you ran them, they were government plates, but when you ran them, they were fake plates. They just came back. Did more than one time. We got at least 9 different government plates and ran them over the years, and they all came back dead. And look, my stepfather was a state trooper. I even asked some other friends about Hoover cops if they could dig up information on the tag. They always just came back as fake. No additional information on the car or the tag. And they would just show up, threaten you, and tell you something, and go on their way. And then it was just, especially when we were talking about the Holocaust dreams and certain parts of the alien agenda, they just did not want us talking about.
Holocaust dreams?
Yeah, some of that they didn't want us talking about, and some of the alien agendas they just didn't want us talking about. They were like, no, you just don't need to talk about that. Leave it alone for you. And they didn't actually, and this is the bad part, they never actually threatened me. They always threatened my family. They never actually threatened, I guess because they figured it was a waste of time to threaten me, but they knew who to threaten. Then, stuff like, we know you drive all the time, we know you're here, we know you're there, we can run you off the road. And you got to remember, too, we live, like people live with mountains, we have bridges everywhere here. There is water everywhere. Not just water, there's water filled with sharks and alligators everywhere. So it wouldn't be nothing for an 18-wheeler to run you off one of them 12-mile ridges over a swamp, or by the time they got you, you'd be eaten to pieces and shit. It's just, they know it, and like I said, I've been told more than once, hey, we appreciate a lot of what you do. We're glad you share the information, blah, 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 blah. And we do share a lot of other information with other groups, but still, there are some things they don't want talked about. I don't know if it's because we're not ready, or if it's just stuff they worry about that may cause some trouble down the line.
To me, I can't see how we're not ready. I'm just cannot wrap my mind around that.
That's always been my problem. Okay, I feel the same way, but then I stopped and thought about it one day. Okay, so I'm ready, you're ready. The guy down the street in Mississippi, he's not ready. He's thinking this is God or demons. India is not ready. China is not ready. South America is not ready. Africa is not ready. Half of Europe's not ready. So out of the 7 billion people on this planet, I would say 500 million are ready.
It's ironic you mentioned that number. That's the Georgia Guidestone number.
Yeah. Or if you want to use the contactee number, it would be 1.5 billion already. But regardless, the overall majority is not. The overall majority of the planet is not ready for any of this crap. They're just kind of like, okay, aliens? Oh no, we're still dealing with God. Thank you very much. We don't need to talk about aliens at this time. Even though cultures like the Indian culture, Hindu culture, there's a lot in there.
It's true.
So they don't have as much problem with it. I noticed we got a big following in India. We got quite a few directors in India. So they don't seem to have as big a problem with it. But a lot of the other world does. And even in America, I guarantee you 50% of the population is not ready for it. They would be out in the streets, it's the end of the world, it's that, it's demons, it's whatever. It wouldn't be what it actually was. And then there's the other problem. How are we going to treat these aliens when they're walking amongst us or dealing with us, or we're seeing them on TV? Are you going to panic? Are you going to stare at them when they're walking down the street? I mean, we're just not there yet. We can't even hardly deal with race and different religions on the planet, much less aliens.
It's true.
I mean, we're still crucifying Christians and Muslims and, blacks and whites and cherry people, like cherry Coke people. I seen that in chat. That's why I said that. It's just not where we are yet. I would like to be, and I'm an Aquarius. So when I was young, I was always like, oh yeah, we're ready for everything. We're the perfect race. Yeah, we're a bunch of dumbasses. Unfortunately, after 50 years on the planet, I realized we're not the brightest people in the universe yet. But I want to see us do good. I want to see our planet thrive. I want to see us become a part of the galactic community. I want to see Earth become a united planet. But right now, there's a Twilight Zone. It's one of my favorite ones. I think it's Twilight Zone. What's the other one? Outer Limits, it might have been. But anyway, aliens come to Earth. They show up in mass, right? So they tell Earth, get its stuff together or else they're going to wipe it out. So the UN gets the assembly together, and they work for like 3 days until they come up with a deal that unites the planet. They all become one great government, and they're ready to be part of the galactic community. And guess what happens? the aliens wipe them off the face of the planet because they had set up Earth to be a warring planet, to build warriors and for one culture to become the best warrior culture so they could join the other aliens in warring in space. So they just wiped us out. So I like that because it teaches us a lesson. Pay attention because aliens don't think like we do. You never know exactly what it is they want. And we better be a united world before they get here and give us any ultimatums. And I don't know how you're going to do it. How are you going to get the Russians to agree with the Chinese, and the Chinese agree with the Indians, and the Indians agree with the Pakistanis, and the Pakistanis agree with us?
Without going to nuclear war. That's true. That's very true.
Well, you got to get it. That's the first thing you got to do is only one person can have a military. Everybody else has got to give up the military. You got to have one giant military that can police the world, and you don't need one that can invade countries and stuff. You just need one that can police the world. So you don't have to worry about giant militaries. You won't need nuclear weapons anymore. And think about if you could get all the scientists to work on one freaking project together. Think how long ago cancer would have been cured.
Yeah, that's true.
It's just, but we're just not there, unfortunately. I want us to be. And people get mad at when I make examples like that. Well, you're being negative. No, I'm being honest. There's a difference. We're just not there yet.
You remember Reagan's speech, and I know we're definitely over time, so I'll make this quick. Reagan's speech that if we were faced by an alien threat, wouldn't we unite? So what if that's what it actually takes? What if it does take us seeing them to unite?
Well, there's an episode of Doctor Who and the doctor says, the invasion is over. We're dealing with an occupied world now. That's what it is. The invasion's done. They're here. There is no fighting off any invasion now. The only thing we can do is unite as a planet to maybe try to get them off our planet, to kick them off. But they're here. They've been here for a long damn time, too. So I agree with, Reagan was interesting because he instituted Pine Gap, which is a joint military defense of outer space, a joint British-American defense of outer space. It's in somewhere outside of Queensland and Australia. He instituted the Heart Facility, which we know is punching holes through the ionosphere with what we don't know, but they are. And he instituted Star Wars. He instituted 3 programs that looked seriously, and you ever see a Star Wars laser? This thing was not designed to shoot down little missiles. This thing was designed to knock out a city or some shit. These things are badass. They high wattage, high powered. Man, sucked down half of New York just shooting one of them off. So he instituted, and then he came out and said that on 6 occasions at speech, 6 different occasions. He was preparing for a frickin' outer space war. He knew something, and he was not letting them take his planet. He's like, screw y'all, there's going to be a fight. But, but Pine Cap's still there, and Heart Facility is still in existence, and we're working on different systems besides Star Wars now, other defense shield systems, but he knew something. He was preparing us. Unfortunately, he didn't want to tell us. Well, he tried to drop hints that, hey, it could be. But I don't know what we could do right now. Judging from what we know about the aliens right now, if they wanted the planet, unless we had something that could kill them like a disease or a plague, we're screwed. And frankly, I don't even think they're going to use weapons when they take us. I think they're going to let like a plague or an epidemic go loose on a planet. I imagine they could use nanobots or something to engineer something that would just wipe us off the face. I bet you they could engineer a virus that would leave contactees alone and kill everybody else. I'm not sure if the contactees ain't already been inoculated, for one, to be honest with you. There's been some research into that in the last 10 years. So, I mean, all this stuff gets scary, and there is the rumor that when we hit a certain point, it's 9 billion, 11 billion, that's when the pandemic hits the planet and the way it goes. And only the contactees survive, and then some of the aliens come help recolonize the planet, and some of the humans go off-world. I guess we'll only know if it happens and we're here.
That's true. That's true.
The rest of us, it won't matter, will it, peeps? We'll be gone and vaporized or dead from some nasty plague or something. I don't know, but I worry about these things. Probably don't need to, but somebody's got to. And besides, my wife's a reptilian, so... Oh, I said that on air. Shit,
yeah,
y'all
you did. I was just gonna say. Yeah, you did. You did say that.
Yeah, don't let that secret get out, because then we'll have to come to you. And there's a lot of people listening tonight, so I don't want mine and Dr. J's audience to become reppy food. She says she likes she said something about them northern humans taste the best, lower in cholesterol or something. So y'all better watch out. She said Californians taste kind of sour, so y'all probably okay. But
okay, good.
Something about I don't know what you were saying. Something about a bad sour cream or a bad avocado dip or something. I don't know. The reptilians, yeah, they eat avocados too, people. That's like the strawberry ice cream thing. I know. We're gonna leave that alone.
Yeah, I remember that strawberry ice cream. That captured ET and said that its strawberry ice cream was the favorite.
That's another
food.
thing. Okay, Roswell, we captured some ETs. All right. And how did you keep them? Since bitches can walk through walls, I'm just curious how'd you keep them? and then what? They never came to get themselves or their spacecraft. That's why I always thought that Roswell was either something we inherited from the Germans. It could have been extraterrestrial, or something we already had. And ET said, "Okay, we're going to try to show you how to work this," because there was no way we could backwards engineer it. We just didn't have the skills. We still don't have the skills. Yeah, I know y'all think we like Stargate and we got all kind of skills, but not yet. Give it time, people. Give it time. We're not quite to that skill set yet. I'd like to be, but we're just not as a human race yet. I personally I thought we'd already have flying cars, people. Jesus, it's 28. It's almost 2020. Where's the damn flying cars?
I know the year Jetsons should have come a long time ago, and yet we're still using.
I want my damn
1,500-year-old technology from the Chinese, burning chemicals.
It's somebody the other day. Well, oh no, I'm sorry. That's Cortez. We can't talk about her. That's majority.
Yeah, AOC.
Let's say that for another night.
Yeah, we will.
Actually, I'm glad you said that, though, Billy, because I was talking with Michael Angley just before I came on with Dr. Phil and I. Dr. Phil. Dr. J. When did you become Dr. Phil, man? Oh, Lord.
I don't want any relation with that man.
But anyway, before we're going to be doing a panel show sometime in the next week. I'm going to get in touch with all the hosts and set up a day. And we're going to come on and do a blowout panel discussion about Donald J. Trump, about the Democrats, about the Republicans, about 2020 and who's going to be coming in, who's going to be your next president. Kamala Harris, I'll take that bet. How much money are you going to put on that? I guarantee you she's not going to be. Cory Booker, he ain't going to be either. Joe Biden, I'll take that bet too. Right now, I don't see anybody the Democrats can beat.
I think that they're saving for 2024. That's my guess, because if this is the best they can do, then they're screwed.
Cortez for president. Do you really publicly write that? Shame on you. Somebody's gonna laugh at you.
Miss Cortez, the same woman that says print more money to pay for all these free things. Print more money. Oh, what about those people in Hawaii? We'll just build them a train so they can get to California. That was her answer, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, but she wouldn't take a train everywhere. They were going to build them underwater to go to Europe and stuff. But people, we try to go faster to Europe, not slower. We're talking about space elevators and planes that go up and come down in an hour and a half and stuff, go into space and come back down. What do y'all think the Ram Scoop engines were all about? Those were so you could take off. He was supposed to be able to take off in L.A. and land in London in an hour and 25 minutes because they go into space and they come back down to Earth. And that is supposed to be even faster. I know the last one I officially seen clocked was at Mach 14. The DARPA one crashed at Mach 13. So we know they're already going that fast.
Wow. That's pretty damn fast. I actually never heard of anything going past Mach 5.
Oh, yeah. The space shuttle would re-enter between Mach 26 and Mach 34.
Wow.
Yeah.
And yet they're all retired. They're all retired.
Yes, anyway, they're all retired because they didn't like us no more. They didn't love us.
Anyway, any final statements? Because I know we're 20 minutes past the hour.
Yeah, we're getting out of here because I got to go to work in the morning. But back to president on going to the moon. Whether you like Trump or not, whether you think he's an idiot or a great man, it doesn't really matter. He wants to get to the moon in the next 5 years. He wants to establish a presence there before Russia and China does, which we need to do. Also, real quick, they got Russians in Venezuela now, so you're going to have to back the president on that. So other than that, y'all can hate on him all you want. I don't care. That's your business. It's just some things we need to stick together on. And those are two that we should be, as a nation, stuck together on, regardless of politics or creed or sex or religion or any other damn thing for that matter. And, yes, ETs are real, just in case y'all didn't know that.
Well said. All right, well, without further ado, Joe, hang tight real quick. I just want to give you a shout-out. Joe Montaldo, station owner, UPRN 107.7 FM, New Orleans, Louisiana. Also JC at Deprogrammed Radio. People on my team, I wish we had more time to give you a shout-out. Also want to thank iHeartMedia and especially all you fine folks in YouTube Nation. Catch me on Monday, same time, same place.